wears a lot of hats at the FIA, and if I started to talk about all the great things that you've done that's helped improve our sport, I'd be here for the rest of the day. I want to thank you very much for joining us, and please take a seat. And the first question I have for you, Charlie, is a very simple one. I understand that, like a lot of young men, I think I'm guilty of this myself, I understand you snuck under the fence at the British Grand Prix. If I was able to transport you in a time machine, and we could have a conversation with that 12-year-old boy, would he believe where your career has led you?
Very unlikely that back in those days, I lived about a mile away from Brands Hatch, that I can sit here now doing this. But you know, things fell into place well for the years, so here I am.
One of the things that you've been responsible for over the years at Formula One is keeping an eye on those darn cheaters. As technology has improved and changed over the years, is it easier or harder to catch the guys trying to, as we say here in the States, find the gray areas in the rules?
I think it's easy for them to find them. I like to think it's difficult for them to exploit them, however. It takes up a huge amount of resources to check all these things. Of course, as the cars get more complex, then we have to employ different checking methods, and you know, we take nearly 20 tons of equipment and 30 people to each race to check them, and check every last detail. So I think we're on top of it. But almost on a daily basis, I get faced with new questions. Because the more you tighten up the rules, the smaller revenues they explore, and then they look for smaller gains all the time. But they all seem to be worth it.
They say if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Are they better now at, shall I say, trying to convince you that they weren't doing anything illegal?
I think the ain't cheating, the ain't trying is probably not quite true in Formula One now, because I think the stakes are too high to be caught cheating. But there is a great deal of pushing through this, pushing right to the very edge of acceptability, shall we say. But they do bombard me with questions before they put something on the car, or before they do anything. Normally that's the procedure that they follow.
You've accomplished so many wonderful things for the sport that not only Formula One has gotten to benefit from, but it sort of trickles down to everybody in road course racing. If I were to ask you to narrow it down to one accomplishment, which one are you most proud of?
Well, I think one of the things that we've achieved in Formula One is the incredible safety of the car itself. Of course, circuits have come on in leaps and bounds over the last few years as well, but really when you look at accidents like Carl Sainz's accident in Russia a few weeks ago, considering that he hit the wall at nearly 100 miles an hour, the car decelerated from that speed to zero in 4 meters. Due to the way the barriers were all arranged, was phenomenal. He did that in 4 meters, and he raced again the next day, and even the car raced again the next day. And I think that's a pretty amazing. So you have to say that while we're responsible for writing and developing rules, it's the teams that can make the cars. They all do an incredible job.
Now, I have a lot of questions to keep us busy here, but this is the rare opportunity to get to ask a question of Charlie. So if you got a question, shout it out right down here.
The Volkswagen situation in the United States has been quite obscure with the manipulation of the software. So we're all talking about what, if anything, do you think about in Formula One of potentially teams manipulating the software packages?
I think we have software pretty much under control. We have a team of guys working on that, just that side of things continually. We have 5 people working on electronics. So we have a standard engine control units on the cars. they are teams that are limited in the amount of custom software they can actually develop themselves.
Okay, you look at everybody's tape, so.
Standard ECU. So I think we've got it. Hopefully,
Right over here. Charlie, the safer barrier has made a big difference in oval track safety. What do you see as the next advancement for oval track safety that can be looked at?
I'm not a great expert on ovals, I have to confess, but I agree with you. I've seen tests that were done initially on the safety barrier, and it's quite remarkable, especially when you look at the product itself, it looks the same on the wall, but we know it's actually a software. I've asked for those barriers to be installed on some road tracks that we use. I can't really answer your question about the next step in safety for ovals because I'm not actually qualified, I don't think, to say that. I think the safety of ovals, some of the accidents we see, especially over here, are quite remarkable. The fences, for example, keeping the cars completely on the track, which is amazing, the energies involved.
I was waiting on it.
What can you tell us about the recently announced press release about the Formula One track and a race in the San Francisco area?
There's more secrecy on that one. I think there have been quite a few attempts in the last 15 years or so to get a race in the general San Francisco area, none of which have come to fruition so far. I do know the parties involved in this latest thing. I was talking about it earlier, actually. I'm not really in a position to say, because I simply don't know how far advanced that is, but it's not without foundation.
Yep.
Just purely on the logistics and moving Formula One from one country to another. It's easy when we turn the TV on here in the States and watch a Formula One race. We take it for granted. Well, now they're here, now they're there. How complex is that, and what problems do you run into? Say, like if you're running in the news or in Germany or somewhere, that things that we don't know about.
Well, it is a logistical nightmare, that's for sure. We, at the FAA, we have, as I said earlier, about 20 tons of equipment which comes in 8 or 9 big sort of main deck containers. And the team have typically probably 3 times that. So it's a massive operation, and I think together with all the television equipment as well, which goes from race to race, we're looking at 6 or 7 747s full, cargo 747s, you know, so it's a massive job, and as you know, it's not simple. You can't just construct 747s out of nowhere. There's a whole lot of planning involved. And I think some of the back-to-back races, which are quite a long way apart, are very challenging for our guys to sort out. But touch wood, it's always worked, even though some have been slightly delayed from time to time. But we do take some risks in that kind of, yeah.
To move away from logistics and into phantom for a moment, if you can have the ultimate Formula One race, what era would it be, what track would it be, and who would be the 3 drivers on the podium?
Good question. Very hard to say. I mean, what can I say? I would have thought mid-90s was a good era. The engines were nice. The cars were relatively simple. There were some great drivers out there. I suppose ultimately you would want to see Michael Schumacher, Ayrton Senna, Lewis Hamilton as the 3 main protagonists. That would be a very dream race.
We always hear, drivers just aren't the way they used to be. We hear that a lot here in the States. Have drivers in Formula One really changed that much over the years?
I think they've had to become more technically aware of what's going on. I was talking to Martin Brundle recently and about fuel saving. It's something that fans criticise. They say, all we hear is about fuel saving. It's not really racing. But when Martin was racing, he was saying the 4 things that they were told before a race was to save fuel, save tyres, save brakes, save gearbox. That was the main thing that they had to do during the race. They weren't told how to micromanage their cars, but times change. You know, your road car isn't the same as it was. Well, I assume it's not anyway. but you know, things do change, and you have to accept that. But I think you could argue that some of the information that drivers are being given is a little too far. We're taking steps to try and claw some of that back and give more to the drivers next year.
How important is the Ferrari factor?
It is very important. I don't think anyone's under any illusion that Formula One, I think, would change if they weren't racing. Wherever you go, you see Ferrari flags, irrespective of the drivers. It's the mark. It's not so much drivers with Ferrari, whereas with the other teams, I think it's more drivers than it is the mark.
With the impact of the virtual safety car, do you see that applying to other series? I mean, obviously, when you look at IndyCar and road racing in North America, even like DTM or touring car, they tend to have more crashes and so bunching up the field and pit stops, where losing the field in Formula One is taking a lot of that pit stop element out. Can you see virtual safety cars applying to other series as effectively as it's done so far in F1?
I think it's been quite good for Formula One, because if you have too many safety car interventions, it loses its appeal. I think if there are too many, it's not, you know, if you have 4 or 5 in a race, every race, everyone would be expecting it should be something that's out of the ordinary, whereas virtual safety car, the way it's done in Formula One is quite straightforward, but it takes a lot of implementing to try and get the drivers to follow a speed delta, a speed profile, I should say. They keep as close as they can to that profile. If they do that, then they shouldn't lose to the driver behind, they shouldn't gain on the driver in front. It doesn't work out quite like that, because if a driver goes a little bit slower, then the other one catches up, and then they all say, well, why did he do that? And it's, you know, they're all microscopically examining everything, of course. But that's how we do it in Formula One, which is sort of quite a high-end version, if you like. Whereas in our other feeder series, GP2 and GP3, it's just a straight 80 km/h limit, which they have to follow. And that's enforced by the use of a so-called speed lights, which comes on when they're pressing the button, and the button won't work unless they are under 80. So it's very straightforward. But to answer your actual question, yes, I do think it has a place elsewhere. I know it's going to be used in our European Formula 3 Championship next year. It will be used in Macau next year, for example, again in Formula 3. So I can see it spreading here.
What's the most misunderstood part of your job from the fans and maybe even the competitors?
Really, that's a hard one. A lot of talk about the track reduction systems on the cars. Some people think it's not pure enough. For example, they say it's too easy to overtake. Well, it's not too easy to overtake. I think that we see that quite often. I think it's a misconception to say that you just open a wing and you can pass. They don't do that. But it's a great tool. And I think the driver has to play a massive part in that, because he has to get close enough. Although, from a regulation perspective, the driver has to be within 1 second to be able to use it. But he has to be within 0.4 of a second to actually make the pass work. That's how the length of the DRS zones are worked out in order to make sure that it's not easy. So I think that is one of the things that's misunderstood in Formula One, but I could probably think about it if I had time.
Okay, we have time for one more questions, and I gotta be mean and probably cut somebody else off. Any more questions from the class? Way in the back in the blue.
I've got a question for you. You currently work as the sheriff in town, and you weren't always in that role. You were on the other side. Did you ever push the envelope, so to speak, and get away with it? Do you have a favorite story you can share with us?
I think everybody pushed the envelope, as you say, and I think there was quite a lot going on in the early 80s. I could possibly say, obviously, if I was involved or not. But I think everyone was able to probably exploit things a little more than they can now. Not only because there's more at stake, I think. I just don't think people need to do that these days. And they need to be seen to be doing things correctly. Whereas back 30 or 40 years ago, if you got caught with, like when I was mechanic, we tried this water tank cooling the brakes, if you remember, in Brazil in 1982, I think it was, where we won the race, but we were disqualified because the water tank they didn't believe was cooling the brakes. We obviously thought otherwise, but those are the sorts of things that used to happen. You couldn't possibly contemplate anything like that happening these days.